You're living, working in Asia, and you think, well, it's probably time for me to actually learn the language. But then you say, oh, look, I only want to speak the language. I don't need to learn how to read and write. I get it. You don't have the time to learn to read and write. You've got your business to run. You have to run your employees, your company. Who's got time to learn a foreign script? Especially for languages like Thai, Burmese, Chinese, even Vietnamese that looks similar to a Roman script, but it looks so foreign. I have a gut feeling that it's probably that foreignness that's causing you to say that. But did you know that in saying that, look, I don't need to learn to read and write, you're actually putting an obstacle there that's probably going to stop your progress after a very short time of embarking in on that language. I'm going to speak about the top 5 reasons why learning to read and write a language from the get-go as well as speaking is not only going to accelerate, but it's also going to get you speaking clearly, and it will probably keep you learning the languages and stop you giving up. And stay tuned to the very end, because I actually throw a bonus one in there that I believe is the most important out of all of them. Number 1. The fact is, especially nowadays, most of the communication that you'll be doing with people is going to be in some kind of text format, whether it's in China and we use WeChat, or in Thailand the main one is Line, Indonesia the main one is WhatsApp, and right across Asia. But no matter what you're doing, you're going to be using text-based communication methods for a lot of the time when in your communication. So if you cannot read and write, well then it's going to be really difficult to communicate with these people, because they're doing it, and while some of these have the function to actually speak, one, it's not really a good thing to do socially to have vocals or recorded voice blaring in a public place. You're going to want to be able to use text in that language. If you can't read and write, how are you going to do it? Now, I know, you say, well, what if I just use a transliterated system? Now, in Chinese, we have Hanyu Pinyin if you're in the mainland, or you have Zhuyin in Taiwan. And this is a phonetic transcription of the language. In Thailand, there are several permutations of transliteration systems. In Burma there are, in Cambodia there are. Vietnamese, you actually have the Vietnamese script, which is a transliteration system of what they used to use, which were the Chinese characters, the nom. However, don't expect that you're going to be able to actually text or write to people using those methods. A lot of the time, if you do that, even if you're in China and Chinese kids learn Hanyu Pinyin at school, it's just going to be really weird if you're sending text messages in Pinyin. Some of it you might get it, but after a little while, it's going to be very frustrating for the native speakers of Chinese, and you won't be able to expect that they're going to send you a message back in Pinyin, and they'll get very bored very quickly. Transliteration systems will work, but people will not communicate you solely in those. You need to have the script and use the way of communication that the locals are going to use themselves. So let me know, if you've learned a language through the native script and through learning to read and write from the beginning, leave a comment down below and let me know about your experience. If you have actually learned a language successfully through transliteration system, let me know too. I say tomato, you say tomato. I say potato, you say potato. No matter how hard you try, the sounds of your mother tongue are going to influence the way that you pronounce the new language. And if you're using a transliteration system that has letters that resemble the letters that are in your mother tongue, well, chances are that your mother tongue sound system are going to trump those of the language you're learning, and you're going to come out pronouncing things incorrectly, and people are going to have trouble understanding you. And it's not like in English where I say can't, you say can't. I say potato, you say potato. It's not like that. You can't just transfer your sounds and expect them to understand what you're saying. people will not understand you, and you might feel really bad that they don't understand you to the point that you just stop learning. Now, for example, have a look at these names. How would you pronounce this first name? That's Xi Jinping. Now, if you see an X and an I have heard Westerners and newsreaders and even people living in China for a considerable amount of time still pronounce the X and the Z's wrong. XI, it's a smiley lateral sound, and Xi, and for this name is actually a rising tone. So Xi Jinping is how you say it. But I've heard Sai Jinping, Sai Ji, and all of these words. Here's another one. Now, if you're in business, you've probably heard this. The real pronunciation is 孙子兵法, the art of war. Now, because it's written in English, and it's probably been back from like 30, 40 years, they've been writing it S-U-N, and then the Z part, Z. Oh, how do you write that in English? Well, it might be Z-U, T-Z-U, T-S-U. All of these permutations till the point that you'll get Sun Tzu, the art of war. It's not, it's 孙子. So, learning to learn the native pronunciation and link it directly into their script is really going to benefit the way that you learn the language, you pronounce the language, and it's going to mean that you're going to have a great time speaking the language because people are actually going to understand you. One thing that's super important when learning any language is to start to be able to not translate through your mother tongue. This is the whole reason why I wrote Cracking Thai Fundamentals, a Thai operating system for your mind. Actually, it didn't really have to be Thai. Thai was just the vehicle. If you go into the Cracking Thai Fundamentals, it's actually a handbook for how to train your brain to learn a new language, whether it's Thai or Chinese or Spanish or Danish. It doesn't matter. It's the same principles involved. And the first principle in learning a new language is learning how to escape the locks that your mother tongue puts on that language in meanings. When I speak another language, I'm not going to be translating through English. Kalau saya ngomong bahasa Indonesia, saya bisa langsung sama bahasa Indonesia. 如果我说中文的话，我就是一直说中文，不是从英语翻译到中文。I do not translate via the languages. ผมก็เลยพูดตรงในภาษานั้น I speak directly in the language that I'm speaking. How does that happen? It's because every experience that I've ever had in that language is going directly through my mouth. So from my experiences into my muscles and out of my mouth. I'm not translating. And a lot of that, if I'm speaking Chinese, I'm not thinking in Roman letters. If I need to think of the word, it comes up in my mind in Chinese. If I'm thinking in Thai, it comes up in Thai. There's no Roman or Western connection in there. And so learning to read and write the language at the same time is going to really help you break out of the binds of your mother tongue and get directly into that language, and it will accelerate fluency in the language that you're learning. Now, the fifth point of why you should learn to read and write a language at the same time is because the writing system of a language usually fits like a glove with that language. What does that mean? Well, for example, if you learn the script of any language that's based on, say, the Indic script, whether it's Hindi or any of the Indian languages, Tamil, or you're moving through and then Tibetan, Burmese, Thai, Khmer, all of these ones that are based on the Indic script. Did you know that the alphabet is actually a map of the human mouth? This is what I've got up in Cracking Thai Fundamentals, and you can actually click through. I've developed an interactive tool that you can go in and use for free there at jacademy.com, and you can actually click and see that the alphabet are these points in the mouth. So you've got it just plots it out almost like a GPS. And so when you learn to read and write through that system, it's so easy. You don't even have to remember an alphabetical order in English. Why do we have A, then B, then C? All the way. That's the whole alphabet. But why are those letters in that order. There's actually a reason, but it kind of doesn't make sense if you're trying to think of it logically. But in many languages, especially in this part of the world, the writing systems are logical. There's a reason to it. And unlike English, where the first thing you say is, oh, we have 26 letters and how many vowels, blah, blah, blah. Don't count them. You just look at the system. And so if you're learning Thai, you learn to read and write the script, you know that you've got the back of the throat, you've got the top of the mouth, you've got the teeth, you've got the lips. That's it. They're your letters. But people just see it as so foreign, they're scared off from it, and so they think, no, I don't want to. And then they end up learning. It's almost as though that rather than looking at this beautiful picture that makes logical sense, they say, no, I'm going to look at it like this, and it makes it difficult for them where they don't need to be. What would you prefer to see? If I asked you, look at this picture compared to this picture, and I said, describe that face to me in the first picture, you're going to be thinking, what? But if I show you this, oh yeah, it's a face. There's the eyes, there's the nose, there's the mouth. That's how the language is. And so through learning it through the script that's used by the native speakers of that language, for most cases, that language is going to make super sense to you. And things like tones and everything are locked into that system too. It makes it even easier. A lot of this grief that people have learning grammar and tones and all of these things in languages of this part of the world is because they're trying to force themselves to learn through a system. They're doing everything they can to avoid learning the local script. And in doing that, unbeknownst to them, they're making life difficult for themselves. Now, for the executives out there, this next point is a bonus point, but I would say it's probably the most important point. The way that you speak a language is your identity. It's almost like a fingerprint. And if you're in business, the way that you speak and you deliver a language is going to have an effect on the way that you interact with the people around you and the way, more importantly, that they interpret who you are, interact with you, and do business with you. I'll give you an example. As an Australian, if mate, chucking in the back of the ute, I'm going to go in, I seen what you done, I read down the shops, and I think, geez, that's an awesome deal, I want to do it, you want to go into business with me, You're going to think, who is this guy? No matter, even if you're an Australian or motor, you're thinking, what's he saying? But do you know that I hear people who have learned, and they would be fluent. I was just speaking fluent English, but the nature of the English I was speaking then has a direct psychological impact on who I am, what my level of education is, where I learned my English from, where I grew up. All of these things are going to be communicated to you subconsciously through all the metadata around the way I delivered that language. I have heard so many people get fluent in the local languages in China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and yeah, they're fluent. They can communicate fluently. However, as soon as they speak, it has a severe impact psychologically on the people around them, and they could actually offend people. They can lose business deals. They think, oh, I know where you learned that. You probably learned it in a bar or in a massage parlor, because that's the language you would have learned. That's the way you would have learned to speak. As opposed to if you had a different set of friends or you learned it in business circumstances. And so learning to read and write the local language in their script, it allows you to access a whole new depth to the language and get a whole new depth into the way you speak the language. I was working with one executive just a couple of weeks ago in Thailand. Now, he spoke fluent Thai. However, you could tell, even though he spoke it fluently, and it was a decent level of Thai, you could see there were flaws and there were gaps in the knowledge of the language that were very apparent, that to somebody who actually would have learned to read and write from the beginning, wouldn't have made these within the first couple of weeks of learning. But these had lasted with this person throughout over 30 years in the country. And it's only now unlearning so that this person can actually go up and start to deliver the language in much more formal context with dignity and respect for all the people around him. So I would say learning to read and write is actually going to help you speak the language in a way that respects the people around you more, and it can prevent you from losing business or losing customers in the future. So if any of this makes sense to you, I really think that even if you didn't want to learn Thai, jump in and have a look. Go through the Cracking Thai Fundamentals program, because it's an operating system for your mind, not just for learning Thai, but it's actually for learning any language. You'll get techniques in there that you'll be able to start to escape out of the binds of your mother tongue and bring that directly into any new language that you're learning. I'm Stuart J. Raj. Don't forget to click like, subscribe, and that way that every time I produce a new video like this with information that's going to help you and your business, you're going to receive an alert for it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.